Imagine an alien world, untamed and brimming with the unknown. A planet so hazardous, even the bravest Galactic Council explorers called it uninhabitable. Extreme storms tear through the landscape, freezing nights bring instant frostbite, and a mysterious ecosystem hums with creatures unlike anything known. The Galactic Council believed no one could survive here for long. Then humanity arrived. The Council had called it a research mission, a cautious, highly structured observation. But to the humans, it sounded like something else entirely. They'd come prepared, not with military-grade weapons or advanced tech, but with campfires, coffee mugs, and a few too many marshmallows. The aliens monitoring them were in for a surprise, because where others saw survival, humans saw a camping trip. What happens when one team's impossible mission turns into a human adventure? You're about to find out. And if you're ready for a story of resilience, grit, and a little bit of caffeine-powered madness, don't forget to join us by subscribing and hitting the like button. The Galactic Council's research division sat quietly, awaiting the briefing from their new human relations liaison. The aliens, each hailing from species across the galaxy, had heard tales of the humans' bizarre ways, their stubborn resilience, their penchant for low-tech solutions, and their strange fondness for dark, bitter liquids they called coffee. But this mission was different. No amusing Earth customs or quirky human gadgets would save them here. The planet they were sending the humans to, designated PX-149, was, by all Council standards, a certified death world. It was a place where their most advanced expeditionary teams had barely survived, forced back by relentless storms, toxic flora, and temperatures that fluctuated wildly between blistering and freezing. On PX-149, even the shadows moved with intent. The Council's strict regulations would have prohibited any non-essential teams from even approaching it. But humans had volunteered. As the aliens sat in anxious anticipation, Chief Coordinator Zakharl, a rigid, detail-oriented official from the Kazarova system, addressed the assembly. "Let us review, shall we?" Zakharl's voice buzzed with authority, his tentacles flexing with nervous energy. "Our goal is simple. Allow the human team to gather reconnaissance without incurring significant risk. We will monitor every detail remotely. They must adhere to the standard safety protocols and report back regularly." An alien officer from the Dromok species, whose skin seemed to shimmer with unease, raised a clawed appendage. "Do we anticipate any unexpected behaviors from the humans? We've heard they are, how to phrase this, fond of improvisation." The question lingered in the air, sparking nervous mutters. They had all read the incident reports. Tales of humans fixing reactors with adhesive strips and calming violent creatures by, oddly enough, talking to them were circulated like urban legends. Zakharl's expression soured, his tentacles twitching slightly. "That is precisely why we have equipped the human team with explicit instructions, pre-programmed safety drones, and detailed communication protocols. Deviations will not be tolerated." But as he spoke, a quiet voice at the back interjected, a recent transfer from Earth's planetary liaison office. "Respectfully, sir, humans don't always follow strict instructions when they think they have a better idea." The room fell silent. Zakharl's eyes narrowed. "And what precisely is their better idea for surviving PX-149? The liaison hesitated, but the answer was honest. "If I had to guess, they'll treat it like a challenge." A murmur swept through the room. Treat it as a challenge? PX-149 was a place of dread, a natural hazard to all life. But the humans' reputation was solid. They were known to embrace risks with a combination of nonchalance and an almost reckless joy that left other species utterly perplexed. "Very well," Zakharl sighed, weary. "Let's proceed." As the humans touched down on PX-149, the aliens observed through surveillance screens, their eyes fixed on the strange beings who had transformed what was meant to be a sterile, strategic mission into what looked suspiciously like a camping trip. For the aliens, it was only the beginning of an encounter that would shift their view of humanity forever. As the human team disembarked on PX-149, their first action puzzled the alien observers. One of the humans, a tall figure with a slight smile, pulled out a small metal canister, shook it, and sprayed himself with something. What, what is that? Zakarl asked aloud, his tentacles curling with intrigue. He'd been briefed on human tools, but hadn't encountered anything like this. That is insect repellent, I believe, the Earth liaison explained. They use it to ward off small life forms. The screen showed the humans applying the repellent as casually as if they were on a tropical beach. One leaned over and handed the canister to his crewmate with a chuckle. We might want double coats of this stuff, he joked. No idea what the bugs on this rock are like. The aliens exchanged worried glances. Bugs? There were organisms on PX-149 that could dissolve metal in seconds, but the humans seemed unconcerned. The aliens watched in growing bewilderment as the humans gathered their supplies. No advanced shields, no containment drones. Instead, they unpacked a camp stove, metal mugs, and a small cooler filled with food. The Dromox officer leaned in, whispering, "Are they aware of the planetary hazards? They seem to be acting like they're on an outing." On the screen, one human, a bearded man in a faded cap, was handing out packets of food. "Anyone for some freeze-dried stew? I brought extra chili sauce if things need a kick." "Freeze-dried?" Zakarl whispered, bewildered. His tentacles clenched with tension as the human sat down and began passing around small containers of what the aliens assumed to be sustenance. They watched as one human raised a packet labeled hot cocoa and tore it open, pouring a powder into a metal mug and adding hot water from the stove. Another human, seated with her back to a rugged cliff face, leaned back and sighed with contentment. "You know," she said to her crewmates, "this planet may be a death trap, but it sure has a view." The camera feed showed endless stretches of jagged bioluminescent landscapes, shifting with the wind. The other humans looked around, nodding. The Dromox officer's eyes were wide with disbelief. They appreciate the view." The Earth liaison hid a smile. "Humans tend to find beauty in strange places." Just then, the camera caught movement, a creature, low and shadowy, creeping toward their camp. Its limbs gleamed with the sharp, glassy sheen of natural armor, and its maw oozed with a viscous, iridescent fluid. "Danger!" Zakarl shouted, gesturing frantically. "Alert them of the hostile creature." But before any alarm could be sent, one of the humans noticed the creature and calmly pointed it out to the group. Without a trace of panic, they reached into a bag and withdrew a small, shiny package. They opened it, releasing a strange, earthy-smelling smoke. "What are they doing now?" one of the alien technicians asked, his voice tense. "Burning sage," replied the liaison, almost amused. "It's part of their camping tradition. They believe it wards off unwanted creatures." The aliens watched, spellbound, as the creature halted, sniffed the air, and skittered away. The humans chuckled and went back to their conversation, as if fending off dangerous alien life was just part of the evening routine. At this, Zakarl could only stare, stunned. "How is it that they remain so calm?" The liaison sighed, explaining patiently. "Humans are accustomed to unpredictability. They adapt, they make do. You could say they thrive on it." Another human looked around and grinned, raising a toast of hot cocoa to his crewmates. "Here's to roughing it," his companions cheered, clinking their metal mugs together. To the aliens watching, it was the most bizarre sight. A team of humans treating a hostile world like an outdoor excursion, finding ways to laugh in the face of what was, by all accounts, certain danger. By now, Zakarl's meticulous nature had been reduced to silent astonishment. If this is their idea of a standard operation, I shudder to think what they might consider an actual adventure. But as they continued to watch, their perspectives began to shift. For these humans, adversity was not an obstacle, it was an invitation. And though baffling, it was clear. Humans had a way of turning the most treacherous of terrains into their own peculiar playground. Hours into their expedition on PX-149, the human crew was in high spirits. With tents secured and a makeshift fire pit in place, they set about exploring the landscape. For the Galactic Council's observers, this so-called mission was already nerve-wracking. They had watched as the humans had handled every encounter with barely a trace of caution. But as nightfall approached, PX-149 decided to show them just how merciless it could be. From the monitoring station, Zakarl and the other alien officials stared intently at their screens, analyzing the dropping temperatures as the atmosphere above PX-149 swirled with a dense, dark fog. Night on this planet was known to reach temperatures cold enough to freeze some alien alloys. "Surely they'll retreat to their pods now," one technician murmured. But on the screen, the humans were still gathered around their fire, laughing and joking, as if oblivious to the bitter cold. A moment later, one of the humans stood up, clutching a thick, knitted garment and tossing it over his shoulders. "All right, it's sweater weather, people. Layer up." He passed out insulated blankets and thick clothing to the rest of the team, who bundled up with casual grins and appreciative nods. As if by reflex, one of them even pulled out a small thermos, distributing steaming cups of something dark and rich-smelling. "They're drinking hot liquids," Zakarl said, baffled. "Do they not realize they're risking hypothermia?" The liaison chuckled. "Actually, that's called coffee. It's practically a survival essential for them, keeps them warm and awake even in harsh conditions." The Dromox officer was incredulous. "But we provided them advanced thermal suits. They have cutting-edge survival gear. Why would they choose knitted garments?" The humans' choice of gear might have baffled the aliens, but it was a decision rooted in experience. They had learned to improvise, to rely on both technology and instinct. To them, PX-149 was just another version of Earth's harshest environments, nothing they couldn't handle with a good sweater and a hot drink. Suddenly, alarms blared across the monitoring station as sensors picked up an incoming storm front. PX-149 storms were legendary, capable of tearing trees from the ground and hurling jagged rocks through the air. Zakarl leaned forward, face tense. This was no ordinary storm. It was a category they'd marked as uninhabitable for any species. Just then, the human crew felt the first sharp gusts of wind. One human glanced up, assessing the sky. "Looks like we're in for a bit of a blow. All right, team, 10 anchors doubled up. Everyone keep low." They rushed around, securing their tents with an array of makeshift weights. One particularly resourceful team member even strapped their tent down with what looked like rope made of woven fibers. The monitoring aliens were in a state of shocked silence. Woven fibers. They had provided electromagnetic ground locks and grav stabilizers. These humans weren't just using low-tech solutions, they were inventing them on the spot. Meanwhile, the Dromox officer could barely keep up. They're treating this storm as if it were a mere inconvenience. Do they not understand the severity? But there was no time for further questions. The storm was now bearing down on the human camp, the winds roaring with a force that shook even the sturdy structures of the monitoring station itself. As the first violent gust hit, the humans huddled close, securing each other with practiced, steady hands. One member, a young woman with a spark of mischief in her eye, looked around at her crewmates and quipped, "Well, I didn't think I'd be getting a free exfoliating treatment today." The others laughed, despite the howling winds and biting cold. For the alien observers, this was incomprehensible. To them, this storm was a deadly force of nature, one that demanded absolute respect and caution. But to the humans, it was almost a shared joke, a challenge to overcome together. Then, as if the storm wasn't enough, another alert flashed on the alien screens. A swarm of carnivorous night insects was picking up on the heat signatures in the human encampment. These creatures were fast, and their exoskeletons were nearly impenetrable. To the Galactic Council, an encounter with these creatures meant an immediate retreat or risk of heavy casualties. In the camp, one human spotted the incoming swarm on a handheld scanner. "Uh-oh, looks like we've got company." Instead of panicking, the humans went into action. One of them, a seasoned camper with an easygoing grin, pulled out an aerosol can labeled bug spray and nodded to his team. "Time to bug out, folks." They spread a makeshift perimeter of repellent sprays and thermal flares, creating a ring of heat and scent that deterred the insects just enough to keep them at bay. The swarm circled their camp, frustrated, until they eventually dispersed, unwilling to brave the strong smells and intense heat. Back at the monitoring station, Zakarl was speechless. How did they repel the swarm? Those creatures are relentless." The liaison smiled knowingly. "Humans are notorious for dealing with pests, they're resourceful. As the storm faded and the sun began to rise, the humans finally relaxed, some of them settling into their makeshift beds with triumphant grins. To them, they had faced nothing more than another night in the wilderness, a little harsher than usual, but manageable. The Dromox officer, still in shock, stared at the Earth liaison. "Explain to me," he demanded, "how these creatures could treat such a perilous night as if it were a game." The liaison, with a wry smile, leaned back. "Humans have a saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. What you're seeing is their way of adapting. They aren't ignoring the danger, they're adapting to it, even laughing in the face of it. It's how they handle the unknown." As the humans packed up their campsite the next morning, their actions said it all. They hadn't just survived PX-149, they had adapted to it, bringing their own quirky methods and unbreakable spirit to a world the Galactic Council had deemed too hostile to endure. For the aliens, it was a revelation. To them, humans were fearless, irreverent, and above all, astonishingly resilient. PX-149 had thrown everything at them, and the humans had responded with little more than some bug spray, coffee, and a whole lot of heart. The Galactic Council officials exchanged glances, a mixture of admiration and unease settling over them. Whatever humans were, they were unlike any other species the Council had encountered. The alien monitoring station was in an uncharacteristic state of quiet. For the first time in their professional careers, the Galactic Council observers were lost for words. They had just watched a human team, under conditions considered unlivable, improvise a night of camping amidst a planet's most severe hazards. Now they were left reeling, questioning everything they thought they understood about survival. Zakarl, typically a strict adherent to logic and protocol, sat with his tentacles curled in a way that revealed his own inner turmoil. This was not how the mission was supposed to unfold. The Council had expected to receive reports of cautious, strategic survival measures, not of humans creating makeshift defenses with household items, drinking their peculiar coffee, and laughing at death. An alien technician, eyes still fixed on the video feed from PX-149, muttered under his breath, "Do they not experience fear the way we do?" Zakarl, overhearing, sighed deeply. "Perhaps they do, but their response is unlike any we've encountered. They seem to embrace it, to find amusement in it even." Another officer, a counselor from the Frilex species, who had always prided himself on his intellect, shook his head in disbelief. "This behavior defies explanation. We have protocols for everything, precise logical approaches to survival. But the humans, they seem to thrive on chaos itself. It's as if their idea of safety is secondary to their drive to explore." The Earth liaison, who had been quietly observing the reactions around him, decided to interject. "Humans are, in many ways, built for unpredictability. They've evolved to deal with constant changes and unexpected hardships. Their home planet has environments ranging from deserts to frozen tundras, and they adapt to all of them." One of the Dromox officers, visibly struggling to grasp this, folded his arms and sighed. "But to camp in a death storm, to use bug spray against aggressive alien life forms, how is this anything short of madness?" The liaison laughed softly. "I don't disagree. But to them the unknown isn't necessarily terrifying. It's an opportunity. If they don't have a solution, they'll create one on the spot, even if it seems absurd. They don't always follow our logic, but they do what they believe will work." The counselors, unused to this philosophy, struggled to comprehend. For them, security and predictability were absolute. They had crafted their societies around control, around minimizing risk. In contrast, humans embrace chance, even risk, as a part of their experience. Finally, Zakarl broke the silence. "I have always believed that calculated caution is the key to survival. Yet here we have a species that throws caution aside and lives." This statement was almost heretical by Council standards. A tremor of shock spread through the room, yet none dared challenge Zakarl's words. Deep down, they were all wrestling with a strange new feeling: admiration. One of the younger officers, whose eyes were fixed on the human crew, finally spoke. If we could adopt some of their adaptability, perhaps we too could survive in hostile environments. Perhaps our reliance on technology has hindered us? The question struck at the very heart of their beliefs, and murmurs spread through the room. Could it be that the humans' resilience came not from technology, but from their mindset? This was a concept they had never before considered. An elder council member, who had once argued against inviting humans into the Galactic Council, cleared his throat. Their methods are unconventional, yes, but their success cannot be denied, and while I would never admit it publicly, I find myself compelled by their spirit. The Earth liaison smiled, knowing that the humans were earning a respect few species could hope to achieve. They're unconventional, yes, but I've seen them accomplish wonders with nothing more than grit and improvisation. Where we see limitations, they see possibilities. PX-149 was meant to be insurmountable, and yet here they are, taking it in stride. This struck a chord. The Council had always viewed PX-149 as a testament to nature's fury, a place that no logical being could survive without significant precautions. But humans seem to treat it as just another stop on their endless quest for adventure. One of the Dromox officers rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Perhaps we need to revise our protocols. If humans can survive with their methods, perhaps we have overestimated the dangers of certain worlds. Maybe they aren't as insurmountable as we thought. Zakharl looked at the screen again, watching the human crew's antics with a newfound understanding. Perhaps humans possessed something that went beyond mere survival instincts, something intangible, yet undeniably powerful. He turned to the liaison. Your people, they do not fear the unknown. They embrace it, and in doing so they change it. Tell me, do they consider themselves superior for this? The liaison shook his head. Not at all. In fact, humans often believe they're a little bit foolish for the risks they take, but they see value in the journey, in learning from the unexpected. For them, it's not about surviving unscathed, it's about experiencing everything they can, regardless of the outcome. Another counselor chimed in, his voice tinged with awe. They experience existence with a fierceness we cannot replicate. It is as if they choose to face the universe head-on, without hesitation. Zakharl nodded slowly, his perspective shifting. Perhaps that is what makes them unique. They are not bound by fear or caution in the way we are. They accept that survival may come at a cost, and instead of resisting, they adapt and overcome. A new respect filled the room. In their hearts, the counselors knew that, while they still valued caution, there was a strength in the human approach that they had underestimated. It was a perspective they could never fully adopt, yet one they could no longer ignore. The counselors sat in quiet reflection, contemplating what they had witnessed. These humans had come to a hostile planet, and through resilience, creativity, and camaraderie, turned it into an adventure. PX-149, once a symbol of insurmountable peril, was now a backdrop for human tenacity. Zakharl, feeling a deep, almost reluctant admiration, spoke softly. Perhaps in time we may all learn to see the universe as they do, not as a series of obstacles, but as a realm of endless possibilities. And as the humans continued their expedition, unaware of the impact they were having, the counselors quietly realized that humanity was not just another species to study. They were an example, a testament to what it meant to live fearlessly, to explore relentlessly, and to face the cosmos with an open heart. As the day dawned on PX-149, the human crew resumed their journey across the rugged terrain, unaware that their every move was being meticulously documented by the Council's fascinated observers. The Galactic Council's monitors hummed with data, recording every rise in temperature, every shift in wind velocity, and every interaction between the humans and PX-149's alien environment. Today, however, the planet would throw every challenge it had at them, and the aliens would see humanity's resilience in full force. The first sign of trouble came as the humans entered a dense, mist-laden valley. PX-149 was infamous for its natural gas pockets, small, invisible clouds that were volatile, capable of causing violent chain reactions when disturbed. The Council's observers knew that even the smallest spark could turn the entire valley into a fiery death trap. But the humans were oblivious. As they advanced, one of them casually pulled out a lighter, preparing to ignite a small camping stove for breakfast. "No, stop them!" one of the Dromok's officers shouted, his normally calm voice filled with panic. The liaison, realizing the danger, sent an urgent alert. A small communication device on the humans' equipment flashed, signaling the incoming message, but they were too absorbed in their morning routine to notice. The officer watched in horror, convinced they were about to witness a disaster. Then, just as one of the humans was about to flick the lighter, a member of the crew, seemingly guided by a sixth sense, raised a hand. "Hold up, folks," he said, sniffing the air. "Anyone else smell that? It's got that weird ozone tinge." The team stopped immediately, one of them sniffing the air and nodding. "Yeah, smells like that gas leak we had back on Titan Station. Probably best we don't light anything just yet." He stowed the lighter away, and the crew decided to move a little farther before setting up their stove. In the monitoring station, the council officers were stunned into silence, jaws dropping as the humans narrowly avoided a catastrophic explosion by trusting their instincts alone. "They detected it without our instruments?" whispered Zakarl, completely at a loss. The liaison nodded, smiling. "Humans can be surprisingly intuitive when it comes to survival. Sometimes they just know." But PX-149 wasn't finished with them yet. As the crew pushed forward, they encountered another challenge, one the Galactic Council had always avoided on this planet. They were now facing a region populated by a creature known as the Viral, towering, multi-limbed beasts with hardened exoskeletons that made them nearly impervious to weapons. Known for their territorial behavior, they were quick to attack any perceived threat. The humans paused at the sight of one such creature lumbering across their path, its dark, armored body casting an enormous shadow. One of the humans squinted at it, murmuring, "Looks like we've got ourselves a local. Big guy, huh?" The creature, sensing the humans, let out a low growl and took a defensive stance, its eyes narrowing. In the monitoring station, the council officers braced themselves, anticipating the humans would retreat or call for emergency evacuation. Instead, the humans began rummaging through their packs. After a few moments, one pulled out a bag of what appeared to be trail mix. One of his companions looked at him perplexed. "Trail mix? Really?" He shrugged. "Hey, it's worked on bears back home. Let's see if it's a universal peace offering." To the council's disbelief, the human calmly tossed a handful of the mix on the ground in front of the Viral, stepping back cautiously. The alien creature sniffed the air, lumbered forward, and began examining the strange offering with obvious curiosity. The entire council observation room was silent as the massive creature leaned down, sniffed, and then began eating the trail mix. The humans, exchanging grins, backed away slowly, letting the Viral enjoy its unexpected snack as they skirted around it. Zakarl could barely believe his eyes. "Are they taming it?" The liaison chuckled. "Humans have an interesting relationship with wildlife. They don't always see predators as enemies. Sometimes they just see them as, well, animals." With the Viral distracted, the humans continued on their way, only pausing once to look back at the creature with a mixture of awe and satisfaction. For them, it was just another day in the wilderness. But PX-149 had saved its most formidable challenge for last. As the sun began to set, the temperature plummeted, and the humans noticed a faint but rising rumble beneath their feet. It was a rare but feared phenomenon on this world, a subterrestrial quake, where underground gas pockets triggered violent seismic shifts across the surface. The ground shook violently, causing rocks to crumble and the landscape to distort. The humans, caught off guard, scrambled to maintain their balance, while boulders began to tumble down from the cliffs around them. It was pure chaos, and the council officers were certain that this time, even the humans' ingenuity wouldn't be enough. One of the humans, steadying himself, shouted above the din, "All right, people, time for Plan B. Everyone grab what you can and head for the caves." They moved quickly, collecting only their essentials and abandoning the rest. The council had mapped out safe zones on PX-149, but the humans didn't seem to need directions. They made for the nearest natural cave system, displaying an intuitive understanding of the terrain that left the alien observers awestruck. Inside the caves, the humans regrouped, taking stock of their supplies. The tremors continued to shake the ground, but they remained calm, reassuring each other with jokes and encouraging words. One human chuckled, catching his breath. "Nothing like a bit of adventure, huh? Bet you they don't get this kind of action at headquarters." The others laughed, the sound echoing off the cave walls as the last tremor subsided. Exhausted but exhilarated, they set up their remaining gear and almost casually resumed their evening ritual of coffee and campfire songs. Back at the monitoring station, Zakarl watched in awe as the humans huddled together, sharing food, laughter, and stories, their spirits as unbreakable as ever. PX-149 had tested them with every hazard it had, but the humans had weathered it with nothing more than a handful of trail mix, a campfire, and a profound sense of camaraderie. Finally, Zakarl turned to the Earth liaison, his voice filled with reluctant admiration. "I have seen countless expeditions, numerous survival teams, but I have never seen anything like this. These humans, they do not merely endure, they thrive." The liaison nodded, pride glinting in his eyes. For humans, survival isn't just about getting through a challenge. It's about making the experience their own. No matter how harsh the environment, they see it as an opportunity to bond, to find humor, and to rise to the occasion. The Galactic Council officers sat in silent reflection, watching the humans as they shared another round of hot cocoa, laughing and recounting the events of the day as if it had been an enjoyable hike rather than a life-or-death struggle. Zakarl, humbled, spoke up. "We must rethink our protocols, our approach to exploration. If humans can survive PX-149 through sheer will and creativity, then perhaps there is much we have yet to understand about resilience." The Dromox officer, still staring at the screen in amazement, nodded slowly. "Agreed. Perhaps we should consider inviting humans on future expeditions. Their perspective may be precisely what we need." As the humans settled in for the night, unaware of the effect they had had on their alien observers, the Council knew they would never see humanity the same way again. The humans had proven themselves to be more than mere allies. They were pioneers in spirit, explorers who turned survival into celebration. As the humans wrapped up their expedition, PX-149 had finally settled into an eerie calm. The storm had passed, the seismic tremors had faded, and the morning sun cast an amber glow across the alien landscape. For the Galactic Council's observers, the past few days had been a revelation. These humans hadn't merely survived PX-149. They had conquered it with ingenuity, camaraderie, and a resilience that defied every council standard. Zakarl sat in the observation room, watching the last footage of the human crew as they packed up their campsite. For the first time, his strict demeanor had softened, and his gaze held a glimmer of respect. The humans, laughing and joking as they cleaned up their site, seemed as if they were leaving a favorite campsite rather than a death world. One of the Dromox officers spoke up, breaking the silence. "It's as though they view danger as a passing inconvenience. We would have evacuated within hours, and yet here they are, reminiscing about the good times they had." The Earth liaison, who had watched the Council's reactions with quiet pride, nodded. "That's the human way. It's not about what they face, it's about how they face it. They're not here to simply survive. They're here to experience it all." On the screen, one of the human crew members raised a hand in a casual salute, giving PX-149 a last almost fond look. "Well, folks, it's been fun," he said, grinning, "but I think I'll stick to hiking Earth's mountains next time." His crewmates laughed, playfully debating what had been the worst part of the journey, whether it was the freezing nights, the viral encounter, or the storm. They shared stories of their scariest moments, but their laughter was genuine, and their memories, though harrowing, were clearly ones they would cherish. Watching them, the council members found themselves deeply moved. For all their advanced technology and careful calculations, they had never imagined a species could approach survival with such lightheartedness, nor that laughter could be a weapon against fear. One of the younger counselors, who had been initially skeptical of including humans in council missions, cleared his throat. Perhaps we underestimated them, he admitted. They possess a strength that doesn't come from technology or rigid training, but from something intangible. Zakarl sighed, the weight of his initial doubt lifting as he saw the truth in those words. Indeed, they have a way of embracing uncertainty, of turning hardship into something meaningful. In the face of adversity, they remain human. The council room fell silent as the human shuttle lifted off, leaving PX-149 behind, yet somehow imbuing it with a spirit it had never known before. It was no longer a place of dread but a site of triumph, a testament to humanity's unique resilience. Finally, Zakarl addressed his fellow counselors. We should document this experience, not just as a survival mission, but as a study in adaptation, in perspective. Humanity has given us a new lens through which to view exploration. They have taught us that survival is not simply an act of endurance, but a testament to spirit. The Dromox officer nodded, his voice filled with reluctant admiration. I never thought I would say this, but perhaps we should consider more joint missions with humans. Their methods may be unconventional, but they see possibilities where we see only barriers. The Earth liaison, sensing the Council's new respect for his species, smiled. Humans are always willing to lend a hand. They find value in challenges, and they'll be there with a coffee mug and duct tape if you ever need them. The Council members chuckled, sharing a rare moment of camaraderie, having glimpsed something in humanity that went beyond mere resilience. It was as though the humans had left a part of their spirit on PX-149, a spirit that the Council could not ignore. Back on Earth, the human crew was unaware of the impact they had made. To them, it had been a memorable adventure, one for the books and their photo albums. But for the Galactic Council, this mission would stand as a pivotal moment, a revelation that the universe's toughest challenges weren't about mere survival, but about the journey, the connection, and the spirit one brought to it. And so, as the Council adjourned, Zakarl concluded with a line that would echo through their records for generations to come. When facing the unknown, remember this: if it can be done, a human will find a way, and if it can't, they'll still try, just for the challenge of it. Months after the mission on PX-149, the Galactic Council issued a new directive, one that sent waves of surprise and curiosity through every counselor and scientist across the galaxy. Directive 42, Human Resilience Protocol. The document outlined specific recommendations for Council expeditions involving humans, noting that human methods of intuitive survival, unorthodox problem-solving, and adverse environment adaptability were now officially recognized. The directive advised, whenever possible, to assign human consultants to high-risk missions. The Council's records now contained detailed entries documenting humanity's extraordinary capacity to thrive in situations others deemed hopeless. Researchers in alien academies studied these entries, hoping to understand the unquantifiable element that allowed humans to treat extreme conditions as adventures rather than threats. One entry, however, stood out, bringing both smiles and wonder to those who read it. Field Notes, PX-149. Incident Recommendation: equip all teams with human standard coffee kits and basic Earth survival tools, tape, thermal blankets, insulated mugs, for improved morale. Observation: humans displayed extreme adaptability and optimism, showing consistent humor under duress. Suggest investigating the role of Earth coffee in maintaining morale. Meanwhile, on Earth, the human crew from PX-149 carried on with their lives, oblivious to the lasting impact they had made. To them, the mission was just a story to share over future campfires, a tale of thrilling survival, of mysterious creatures, and of the taste of coffee in the coldest night of the universe. As for Zakarl, he found himself visiting Earth more often, frequently seen sipping coffee and carrying a notebook with Earth proverbs he had come to admire. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade, had become one of his favorites, though he privately mused that humans would probably try to make lemonade even if given something as strange as PX-149. And so the galaxy's view of humans transformed. Species who had once considered them reckless and strange now saw them as pioneers, brave, a bit mad, and endlessly resilient. For now, PX 149 lay silent, its fierce storms brewing in the background, waiting for its next visitors. And though it remained one of the most hostile worlds in the known galaxy, it held a strange new legacy, an echo of laughter, a forgotten trail mix wrapper, and the faint scent of coffee. A reminder that humans had been there, and that they would likely return, ready for the next adventure.